station to station, back for a Christmas edition. We have a couple moves that the Jays have made, so we wanted to reconvene after a little break to talk about them. I am back, of course, always with my battery mate, Dustin. How has your Christmas been and your holidays and all that?
It's been good. It's um, maybe just an average year. Uh, Nothing too big, nothing too small. With the after COVID and everything, it's kind of nice to get back to just a normal Christmas year. How about you?
Yeah, I feel the same. I have a young son, so he's kind of starting to understand what Christmas is, but not really. So, he had kind of fun just because there's so many people to, play with and other kids around and whatnot. So it was definitely a good Christmas. And New Year's is coming, but I'm kind of looking forward to. This is usually the point of the Christmas break where I'm like, yeah, let's just get back to rhythm. I'll enjoy the time off until Tuesday, but I I just I don't know. I'm a person of habit, so it's like I'm good with going back to my routine of you know working 8:30 to 4:30 and podcasting later on at 9 p.m. at night. So, well, let's hope there's some moves we can talk about as well.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same. The creature of habit, and I get kind of antsy when I have too much time off and nothing to do other than sit around and play video games. So I'm glad we're doing this.
That's exactly what I did today. All right, Dustin. So the Jays have made a couple moves in the last, I guess, 48 to 72 hours. Kevin Kiermaier coming back on a 1 year deal. So he's been resigned, and I guess the new player is Isaiah Kinner-Falefa. And the question I have for you, Dustin, is: are these moves like steps building to something greater this offseason, or are these just moves that will never ever fill the vacuum created by a player that the Jays unfortunately were unable to sign?
I mean, I tend to probably land on the first one there that you suggested is that these are let's say these are typical moves that you would make towards the end of a free agent class. Once you've got your big, flashy deal, and then you fill in around the edges with, as we did last year with Kiermaier and someone like IKF. So to me, it's a little odd that they're kind of happening now. Who knows why or the insights on timing and whatnot. I know that they were pursuing Cody Bellinger, or at least that's what all the news reports say. And I think I saw something where Cody Bellinger was probably not gonna make a decision till towards the end of the year. So maybe they're just kind of trying to fill in, hedge their bets, or just maybe they've kind of feel like they're not going to get him, and so they went with KK. Um, you know, I mean, let's just maybe deal with these one at a time if you want to do that. Um, I think Kevin Kiermaier for me, and that I mean, this is a good move. I remember at the beginning of or at the end of the last season thinking, I'd love to have him back. He's a kind of a vibes guy. Seems like a good clubhouse guy. Seems enthusiastic to want to be here. Just all the sort of the peripheral non-baseball stuff is all good for him. So I liked watching him. I liked having him on the team. Um, and I mean, he had a pretty good year last year, and I don't think the outfield um, was necessarily the problem. I mean, to me, the problem with the offense was, the big guys in that we expected to do a lot for this team underperforming. Vladdy, Kirk, and maybe Varsho as well. So I'm fine with having him back.
I think going into the offseason, he was actually one of the players I did want to retain, but I also felt that it might be tricky to retain him because of, you know, his position and he's obviously a gold glove center fielder, but not really much of a bat. And in fact, I actually think last season was one of like his best years at the plate. And you know, he's just not known for his offensive prowess. So I thought he might be kind of a casualty of basically improving the team, right? And you mentioned Cody Bellinger. Lots of course, talk about Cody Bellinger. We don't know how truthful or in reality that is. I think with the Jays being pretty much in on everybody, I think we have to uh, assume that it was somewhat truthful, their interest, of course, and of course, of his reciprocal interest as well. Now, I do think this is probably a hedge, because I don't think that this totally precludes the Jays from signing Bellinger, if they can get him at the right price. And I think I think what we're seeing right now, and I have often over the past few weeks, kind of just I throw Cody Bellinger's name into Google and I see what news articles come up. And there doesn't really seem, there's not really any movement. The Cubs are interested, the Jays are interested, the Giants, because they don't seem to be able to sign anybody of any substance. Um, and so it just seemed like this kind of wheel that keeps spinning, but not really. It wasn't really stopping. And uh, I think that probably is, there is a stark difference between what Scott Boras and Cody Bellinger value themselves as and what the teams are valuing themselves. Because if a team offered him what he wanted or what they valued Cody Bellinger at, I think he would have already signed. And so what I think, because Scott Boras, 200, he wants 200 plus million, some kind of contract in that stratosphere for Bellinger. And now most predictions seem to think that he's, 170, 180, less than 200. So there's a bit of a bit of a difference there. And I think what the Jays are doing, like, if at minimum, this sends Scott Boras a message saying, like, we don't need a center fielder, man. Like, we have a center fielder. We already had one, a decent one. And yes, we like your player, but we like your player at the right price. And as much as I want them to go out and land, the best position player um, still available, I don't want the Jays to overpay for him because, of course, we know the elephant in the room is, 2 year window and um, Bo and Vladdy, becoming free agents, all that, and I wouldn't want to hamstrung myself uh, for maybe not being able to do something with one of them. I like Bellinger. I think he's a good fit. Um, I have read a lot of articles about, of course, he had these few rough years. That seems to be directly related to not only injury, but like like there was some kind of the rehab and the way they treated this injury was not good. And, if any sort of injury in any sport, if you don't treat an injury properly, getting back to the highest level is going to be difficult. Of course, Cody Bellinger, every single article on the face of the earth has mentioned his quote unquote, and I'm doing air quotes right now, you can't see it, but quote unquote ball tracking stats, right? And he's his hard hit percentage is the same as, I don't know, his teammate Jan Gomes or something. And so I don't know. I'm not too concerned with a drop off, but I also don't want the Jays to overpay either.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right that um, you know adding Kiermaier to this team, sends a signal in that hey, we're not going to sit here on our hands and wait for your player. Um, no matter how many news articles that are coming out saying the Blue Jays are the favorite for you. I mean, we're not going to wait I mean, it does kind of make it a little awkward when you you sign. You have three center fielders, four if you count George Springer, on this team to play three spots in the outfield. So and Cody Bellinger's not going to want to sign somewhere where he's going to be DHing. Um, so maybe there's trades or things that they could do on that front. So to me, the Kevin Kiermaier signing kind of just um, meant that we were moving on from Cody Bellinger. I mean, that was my assumption. I know a lot of people are still saying, as you just articulated, that there's still possibilities, there's still a way that it can make it work. Maybe you could DH Springer and then have Bellinger in right or something. But I mean, Bellinger's not going to want to do that necessarily. He's not going to be happy about that. If he values himself as a center fielder and thinks that's part of his value. Now, if he signs 200 million for 10 years, I mean, maybe he doesn't care. Like he's got 10 years to think um, about that. So maybe that's not as big of a worry. But I'm sure he's going to want to be a center fielder if that's he values himself that way. But I mean, to bring it back to your other your initial question, you know, does this kind of signal some kind of panic move or whatever on behalf of the team to like satisfy the the frustration of the fans after losing out on Otani? I don't think so at all. I think, like I said, this and then the IKF signing are kind of just peripheral signings that feels like they just kind of got done. They had the timing or discussions advanced to a point where they worked it out, and they're like, you know what? They see something. They know what they've got in Kevin Kiermaier, and maybe they see something in IKF. Um, you know, uh, uh, to sign him for whatever reason. Maybe they've got. So my assumption is that at least with the IKF, maybe we can move on to that. Is that my assumption with them, with that signing, is that there's something else down that they have kind of either in the works or that they have plans for to trade like an Espinal or a Biggio um, or something, because I don't see how this team can carry
And David
IKF,
Schneider.
Biggio, and Espinal on this team. And David Schneider, yeah, you're right. Um, now, you know, IKF is, let's say the positives of who he is he's basically can play every position on the field. He can catch. He can play outfield and every infield position. I mean, just searching his name on Twitter, you see the Yankees teams tweeting stuff about like, is he going to play all nine positions? Because he pitched as well in a couple games last year. So um, we got the true two-way player, and but yeah. So he's. I think that the team likes that when you've got so much in the outfield um, locked up. I think having somebody that can just move around and give you that flexibility is valuable, and I've seen them do that kind of move for the last however many years. Ross Adkins has been, um, the GM. So I think that, yeah, that's all it is. This is a peripheral move. There's something coming down the pipe that will make this make sense, I hope.
IKF, as seems like we are calling him. He is I get he's the utility man, and it seems like, I guess it doesn't take a genius to figure out that essentially he's the Whit Merrifield replacement. And I kind of thought like, oh, is he actually? And then I looked up their WAR, and IKF's WAR is 0.1, so he's basically an average player, but he's an average player that can play all over the field. And Whit Merrifield's WAR last year was 0.7. So not even a full win above replacement for Whit. And given, what he was owed in terms of his options, this seems like a no-brainer. Um, I guess this seems like he's kind of essentially, as you said, a peripheral, a support player. If Springer needs a night off, he can go on right. If maybe there's an injury to Bo Bichette, he can step in at short. I don't know. It doesn't seem like it's a an option that is going to be playing every day at the same position. So I don't think he's going to be slotted in at third, but I think we probably will see him at games at third, assuming that Matt Chapman isn't re-signed.
I don't think IKF is the third base signing. Like you said, he's the replacement for the Whit Merrifield, and I think you know defensively he's better than Whit Merrifield.
He
He's got
he
a
won a
lot more
Gold Glove.
flexibility. Yeah, and maybe offensively he's not as good. Um, but there's some. I tried to do some, let's say, spin on his his numbers. I tried to look through it. The only thing I could really find, he had a pretty good June and July summer months, and I believe, if I recall correctly, that's kind of when Aaron Judge went down for a little while last year, and he probably had more of an everyday role. Just looking at his game logs, he kind of had sort of a sporadic, as you would expect with someone, at the replacement level, kind of bench guy. He didn't play every game or he didn't start every game. But during those months, he started most games, most days, um, as because of Judge's injury. And those were his best months. So there's maybe something to be said with you give him a little more opportunity to play, a little more reps, whatever. Maybe he's better than um, his numbers. That could be a little bit of a, like I said, a spin, a cope. But I as long as we set our expectations appropriately for him, and don't expect him to be the savior. I think it's a pretty good piece. Again, a lot of the kind of conversation around him has justifiably been, well, this doesn't really make sense. We've got Espinal, we've got Biggio, we've got these guys already. It's not what we need, quote unquote. What we need is a power bat, somebody that can replace Brendan Belt and can provide more offense, more home runs, not you know kind of a utility guy.
Well, we need a middle of the order thumper, right? So, it preferably someone who is a safety as well would be nice, but I guess at this point, I don't know, can we beggars can't be choosers? Are we at this point, Dustin?
I maybe, I mean, it has to come in a trade. I think that's what's going to happen. I think that's at least I would hope that's what Ross is looking for, is some kind of trade to make that happen. And maybe Schneider or Biggio or Espinal are part of that package, and or at least part of what they're kind of floating out there. And so they're like, okay, well, let's get somebody that can shore that sort of roll up while we're, you know, kind of making these rolls. Maybe they trade AKF to somebody else. Like, who knows? Who knows?
Well, yeah, I guess it's a possibility, but I don't know. I don't know if you sign with the team and then get dealt right away, but um I this offseason is not getting any easier for the Jays, that's for sure. And I guess I guess we'll see in the coming. I guess January is going to be probably an important month for them, and it's February leading into pitchers and catchers reporting to see where this team is at. And um, when Kiermaier when I was sitting at Montana's in Collingwood, and I hadn't really had my phone I wasn't on my phone much that day, and I see on the screen Kevin Kiermaier, flashing up. And I sent you and Rob a text basically like, "Whoa, they're really taking this whole run it back thing to a whole new level." And so far there has not been a significant change. So, I think we have to assume there's a big change, or at least they're trying. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know where this leaves the team in terms of like there has to be something in the hopper that is being worked on. But yeah, I don't like the. I'm not upset that Kiermaier's back. I know we just talked about that, but I'm not upset that he's back. I think he's just a nice player to have in your team. I don't know. I don't know if that really addresses any need other than, as I said previously, it's kind of hedging or just, well, it doesn't look like, we want to get, it doesn't look like this player wants to come on the terms we're willing to offer, so we'll just look elsewhere. And, that's life, right? You can't put all your eggs in one basket, right? That would be ridiculous, right? So,
And I had this thought the other day. You know, I think that uh, when I remember what we were thinking about at the beginning of last year and the team that they had constructed, I think we were pretty positive. I think that Atkins believed in the team that we had last year, and they underperformed. I think most people would say that the team that played last year didn't play up to their on paper level that they should have. There are a lot of underperformances. I mean, Manoa, we couldn't have predicted the absolute crash of his ability to throw strikes. We couldn't predict, that. I mean, maybe you could predict Vladdy was going to regress even more, but you thought that he would at least be a little bit better. I think we thought they obviously believed in Kirk, um, based on them trading Moreno, and they traded for Varsho, and they thought he was going to be, a good contributor. And I think all three of those guys, four of those guys, failed to live up to what they thought they could. I think they probably still believe that those guys could be better than they were last year. And so even if they were marginally better than last year and you improved it with somebody, like we're talking about like a Bellinger type or who knows, a trade. I think this team could be I don't think that 2023 is the benchmark. I think that's kind of the floor, and we can hope for a little bit higher.
you're an optimist.
Yeah, I am an optimist. Yeah, especially when it comes to like when people you've seen do it before, like Vladdy. I mean, his 2021 season was insane, and so literally MVP caliber season, if not for what Otani was doing. So I feel like he could do it again. He's just they've got to do it. I feel like there's a lot of hope that we've kind of been that has been crushed out of us after what happened last year. But I think it's still there. Maybe I'm just coping or whatever. But I think we can believe a little bit in this team to in this team's ability to do better than last year.
Yeah, I think offensively there's, a lot of room for improvement. I think we can, I could see I can see Vladdy being better. I can see Bo being even better. I think the problem seems to be that, after what you're 1 through 4, it significantly drops off and in terms of the batting order and what the guys coming to the plate just can do. Obviously Danny Jansen will be back healthy. I'm sure he'll be injured, for a good portion of the season again. But it it just seems to be that bottom half of the order, and in general, just extra base hits, right? Like that. It just seemed to be like I was talking with a high school friend of ours who you haven't seen in a while yesterday, and it's just it would last year was the year of like the single.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, and they definitely need to um, bring in some power, even if it means sacrificing some on the field defensive ability, somebody who just can mash, um, and will accept some liability in the field. Um, I think yeah, you're right. If they went into the season with this team as it's constructed today, you know, I wouldn't be very hopeful. But my hope kind of springs from the last few years. This team has been, um, you know, making trades, making, signings that have continually added um, reasonably good players to the team. And, they've been disappointed, they've underperformed, but, um, you know, that can't. That can't be the truth forever. I think there's got to be one of these times where everything clicks.
Well, one thing that I've been thinking, like, okay, so here's the scenario. So let's say they don't bring in Bellinger, they don't bring in a big bat. They sign, I don't know, Ahmed Rosario and maybe a couple other Jock Peterson and some other guys that are just, kind of guys you can fill in. But let's say they signed Vladdy and Bo to big extensions, right? Do you think that would change your opinion of his offseason?
If they signed it this off season,
Yeah, so basically what I'm saying is like the money that they were kind of setting aside for one free agent, they split it in two and gave it to Bo and Vladdy and said, "Here you go. Here's your 10-year, $300 million contracts." Um, now there's some certainty that these guys are going to be around for a while. Do you think that changes the offseason in terms of, wow, like we resigned these guys and the window of, whatever, the window's not closing, right? Do you know what I mean? Like, because everything, the
yeah, I know what you
the
mean.
the elephant that's like this giant elephant in the room is there's a 2-year window, 2-year window. Guy, like we constantly, like, I'm almost getting tired of hearing it because there's this constant talk about it, and so what I'm saying is like, okay, so you failed in the pursuit of a generational talent. Why not take that money that you're going to give to them and give to two players that you already have and just basically, here you go. You're going to be, until your mid 30s, you're going to be Toronto Blue Jays.
Yeah, I think it would change my perception of the future. This team's willingness to continue winning and continue to find a way to improve. But it wouldn't necessarily, like, that doesn't add anything new to the roster. I mean, I guess you're saying the Jock Petersons or whoever they kind of fill in. Yeah, you're gambling there on Vladdy coming back and being better, which I think he can be.
I think he will. I like, even if it's not like in 2024. I refuse to believe that Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is the way it is. He's 24 years old. He's like the youngest player on the team. Like, this is, if you're gonna just give up on this player, like, I don't know. I don't know what to say.
Did you hear there was an interview, I think, on Blair and Barker. It was
David Ortiz.
on yeah, the Ortiz. You heard that one? Yeah, I mean, he was saying essentially that. Yeah, he's saying that Vladdy is he's young, he's still learning, he's gonna break out, and just watch. He could be right. I mean, Ortiz knows what he's talking about to a certain degree, in that he knows Vladdy and he knows, you know, what it's like to be a baseball player, what it's like to come in at a young age like that, and have a lot on your shoulders. So, hey, man, yeah, I'd be happy with that. Would change the my perception of this offseason if they filled in the edges, they filled in the roster, they brought in somebody with some reasonable power, let's say, like a Jock Peterson. I think that'd be an okay signing, and then sign big contracts to, especially Bo. I mean, I'd have no qualifications for him in signing something like that. Vladdy, you're taking a little bit of a risk, but like you said, like I think we believe in him, and I think um, those would be great sort of. Uh, I don't know if they're consolation prizes to not getting Atani, but reasonable enough promise to the fans, like, hey, we want to keep these good players around, and we're here to for the long haul.
Well, I think it would leave a fan base conflicted, and I feel like there's already a significant amount of fans. Just if there's fans that are like, oh my god, well, let's be honest. There's fans that don't believe that the Jays were ever serious contenders for Shohei, right? And those same fans are not very pleased with these, follow-up signings, right? Um, and so the fan base, I think, is already seemingly conflicted, right? Already, there seems like, and I was kind of talking to you guys about this a while back, where like there's reality and where the fan base is at just seem to be totally in different places. Like there were towards the end of November, the Jays were, you know, basically in the final two to sign probably the best baseball player that, like, maybe by the end of it he may be the best baseball player that's ever lived, right? And the Jays were in, the final two, but it just seemed like nobody actually believed that was the case, right? And that's kind of a little bit of how Major League Baseball, the free agency is set up, because the Jays can't talk. Like, no, and let until you have a physical pass by a player, that's when you can say, "Oh yeah, we signed such and such," right? So, I don't know. Have the Jays actually officially announced IKF yet? Because I think so far it's just been like reports or whatever.
No, the official for Kiermaier just came out.
Yeah, so he's good and whatever, but basically the way that the collective bargaining agreement works with teams is they can't comment on anybody. In fact, they can't even say that they weren't interested, right? So when that crazy Friday happened, and of course we, station to station did contribute to that a little bit, just a wee bit. Where there was press conference equipment delivered to the Skydome. That did happen, and it was picked up on Tuesday because there was, of course, no announcement. Um, but what I was thinking was like, oh, why didn't Ross Atkins come out and just like get, even do like his Zoom call and say, hey, like guys, this is bullshit, right? Like we're yes, we're interested, but like he ain't coming. He's not on a plane to Toronto right now. The problem is, and I learned that weekend is that he couldn't actually do that. He's actually not permitted to do that, and so
Right.
I think it's probably so teams don't like collude and like try to drive down the value of players. I'm assuming that's probably what it's
Yeah.
in related to, but yeah, it's just this weird kind of difference of like, and I don't know, and we're recording this on December 28th, so maybe January 28th we should come back and see like a month later, like, has anything changed? Is have they signed any players? Like, what is the what are the comment sections? What are they saying? Do you know what I mean?
About um what exactly?
Well, just about the off season, like are the like, do they sign Jorge Soler? And then everybody's like excited, or do you still have those like same curmudgeons that are like, I don't believe in this team, right? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, you're gonna have those no matter what. If they signed Otani, there'd be people saying, "Oh, you spent 700 million on this guy, blah 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 blah." Okay, you're crippling this team in the future, even if they came out with the deal that Dodgers, So there's curmudgeons with every signing.
well, Dustin, two signings in 2 days, and I guess I got things are moving quickly now, where they were moving like like sloth like progress prior. So maybe we're gonna see some signings coming fast and furious here.
Yeah, I think once I think after New Year's we'll see a couple more things happen. If we don't, today or tomorrow, um, things will kind of jump down maybe over the weekend, and I think in January we're going to see a lot.
Can you give me a prediction? Like maybe a player you'd like to see signed, or like what are they gonna make a trade? Like throw me something you think may happen. Where I'm not gonna hold you to it, but
Man, it's so hard to predict. I mean, I think it's going to be a trade, and that's my problem. Is like I don't know who they're pursuing, who they're talking to, what they're doing. So it's hard to predict a trade. I mean, I think that um, they're looking at a third baseman. I think is what it's coming down to. I mean, judging by the KK signing. So whether it's Matt Chapman or a trade for something, I don't even know who's out there on the trade market for a third baseman. But that's my guess is that they're going to try and fill that middle of the order bat with somebody that plays third base.
so all right. I'm pure pure fantasy, Dustin. Like pure fantasy. I want them to trade for Jose Ramirez from the
Yeah, of
Guardians.
course. Yeah.
So this is a player that they've been kind of there was some trade talks before about with him. He has a full no trade clause, so he can say no.
Mhm.
But the Guardians are one of the teams that have been affected by that regional TV bankruptcy.
Yeah.
So the reason why the Texas Rangers didn't really make it to the finish line of the Otani sweepstakes is something with their regional TV deal, Bally's or something. Um, this company went bankrupt. Anyway, there's a bunch of teams that are all kind of, I think the Mariners, the Guardians, the Rangers, there's a few more of them,
Mhm.
but that are all kind of looped into this. And I think you got to be an opportunist here. And uh, if we're having all these, I like to me, all signs point to the fact that they're going to re-sign Matt Chapman, right? And the run it back team run it back. We're gonna make a banner. We'll be out in right field with our team run it back banner.
Yeah.
But um, right, if they re-sign Matt Chapman, it's pure. This is pure run it back. But why not? If we're looking for the third baseman, like so we were supposed to go all in on Juan Soto, right? And really, I will say that I was wrong and that we should have probably tried to get that one. If you didn't think you could get Otani, and really the way things worked out, I don't think they were actually going to get it. Not because he wasn't going to come here, not because they weren't going to put up the money. It's solely that they were competing against the Dodgers, and that's always where he was gonna go. It was just the way it was, and maybe he should have pivoted sooner and pulled off a Juan Soto deal. Saying that, given what the Yankees gave up, I don't know if they gave up a lot of pitching. I don't know if the Jays really have that kind of in the farm system, um but basically, like if you were gonna go in on Juan Soto, like why not go in on basically one of the maybe top three, maybe arguably best third baseman in the game, going in for him, and he's in his early 30s, and I don't think he's on a huge contract, but that's again, he's not, it wouldn't be a rental. You'd probably have to give up probably Manoa and a bunch of other players, but I don't know. I'm gonna say there's my fantasy move that I'm gonna go to bed tonight and hope happens.
Yeah, no, I'd absolutely be on board with that. Yeah, no doubt. You know, maybe Nolan Arenado as well, Manny Machado, somebody like that. Hey, like let's just go after the big boys. That's fine. That'd be great.
Well, no, and the only reason I like, I did propose a fantasy land deal involving Nolan Arenado during the season.
Yeah.
Um, I think he's like I don't know. I get the feeling he's a little bit older, or he seems that there's some concern that he might be on the decline. Like he's probably still going to be a productive player, but it doesn't seem like Jose Ramirez is like, there doesn't seem to be really any concerns or talk about that. Also, Although the Padres do have to shed, they do have to shed some salary. So maybe there's some, maybe Machado's, maybe there's maybe there's something there, right? Maybe there's another team that you can maybe be a bit of a vulture to.
Yeah, I think about the thing about Ramirez though is like he's so locked in Cleveland. Like as far as I understand, he's like like beloved there. He loves the city. He signed there with a pretty team friendly deal relative to his value. Uh, uh, you know, it, I think it's got to be. I just think it's really hard to find a world in which Cleveland trades him. But you might be right. Maybe they just need to shed the money. They hate to do it, but they got to. Who knows?
Yeah, it's
Um,
business, right? Okay, so that's my fantasy like hope, but I think we're gonna see multiple trades and not big ones. But I think it's like, like Espinal and the kind of these
mhm.
supporting players are moved off, and they're not. I don't think they're gonna be for um, players that are gonna maybe step in right away. But I think you're gonna see multiple trades. And I gotta think that there's a signing of either Reese Hoskins, Jorge Soler, like that kind of ilk, where it's a middle of the order, um, can play DH kind of guy. I think that's where we're heading. Um, so I'll say that that'll be my prediction is they'll have multiple minor trades and they'll sign a middle of the order bat.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be something along those lines. We got to fill those spots, whether it be with a Chapman and then a DH guy, or with a third baseman and a DH. But you got to fill those two spots and then maybe add some pitching depth. But I think they already did that. There was another guy they signed to a minor league deal, which I think is just pitching depth. Um, because I think the Ricky Tiedemann, who would likely be trade bait, but he is a pitcher that's kind of on the fringes, the next in line. If Manoa doesn't bounce back, uh, so I think they might want to add some pitching depth as well. So like you said, yeah, those little around the edges things, but they do need to kind of come in with a big guy somewhere somehow.
Yeah, and everyone seems to, as I said, Kevin Kiermaier deal doesn't preclude them. It probably says that a Cody Bellinger deal is unlikely. I I don't know if like, and this I'm probably going to be completely off base on this, but like I don't know if I would be totally surprised if that still happens because they probably still would be interested at a certain price, right?
Hmm.
And yes, would he play in center field every day? No. But you can play at first, center field. Throw him at a DH. He can. It's like you can basically say, listen, Cody, you're gonna play every day,
Yeah,
right? You're gonna get at bats every day, and you know what? Guess what? We're gonna save your legs. Save your legs for your at bats, right? You get plenty of at bats while we figure out kind of all this. While we figure out how to get four center fielders, in the lineup. But I wouldn't be I wouldn't be totally surprised if there's like this weird um kind of they kind of do like a U-turn,
mm,
right? Where it seems unlikely cuz like he's a lefty bat and he seems like he can hit and God knows they need guys who can hit. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what this team's going to do. I don't know anything. So, I'm just
yeah.
I'm just a talking head at this point, bullshitting my way through it. So,
Aren't we all? Speaking of Cleveland, one interesting player that I'd be interested in is Josh Naylor. He's a DH kind of first baseman on the Guardians. He's Canadian, really young. I don't know if they'd be willing to trade him, but the Naylor brothers, I think he's got like two brothers that are also like either in the minors or coming up, one in the majors, I think. Um, but yeah, I mean, he'd be one I'd be interested in for the DH spot.
well, Dustin, I think that is all the time we have. Where can we find you?
You can find me on the website formerly known as Twitter at Rusty Hoser.
All right, and you can find us, that being Station to Station, at S2S Pod, on the same website. We will. If there's any press conferences, Dustin, we'll be, and equipment is delivered, we'll be first to break it. I will make that promise, as I know who I know who will be delivering it. So anyway, but again, thank you very much for joining me.
Yeah, thank you, Al.